Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Market Open. It is Wednesday, May 8th, 8:46 a.m., and we are here once again on an episode of The Market Open. Obviously, yesterday was a pretty interesting day. I think you guys have seen from some of the pictures and what's happened, so I want to just recap the event and some of the things that ended up happening. It's been a really interesting past 24 hours. I'm pretty sure my words don't even really do it justice, as you guys that are following on Twitter, I've just been seeing some of the posts. You can kind of tell. But I want to recap the event, what happened. I also want to talk about Palantir earnings. The stock's down 15%. I didn't get to talk about it yesterday because we were gone the whole day. But there is some decent analysis, hopefully, I can bring to why the stock's down 12%. And someone I got to talk to yesterday really gave me some insight into what happened with the stock action. And so I want to talk about that as well. Robinhood has earnings today, so this week has been pretty crazy. I'm going to be in DC another day, and I'm staying another day just to make sure that we can do Robinhood earnings on time. So at 3:30 tonight, I'll be live covering Robinhood. Robinhood's down about 2% in the morning. I actually like that Robinhood's down going into earnings versus being up. So we'll talk about that. And then we have some other news today. Uber's down. Shopify's down. Shopify crushed on all their metrics. They're down right now. Uber's down. Disney fell 10% yesterday. Tesla's getting like an SEC notice about frauding investors or something. So there's so much stuff to talk about. But for the first 20 minutes, we're going to discuss what has happened over the past 48 hours because it's been pretty insane. So let me start off by this. First of all, thank you everybody for being here. Really, really appreciate it. I'll start off first by saying this, and then we'll take it day by day, section by section for the next 20 minutes in terms of what went down. I know everybody wants the details, and it was a pretty surreal 24 hours in the day of my life, and yeah, it was just crazy. So I'll explain everything that happened. Thank you everybody for being here. So first of all, first thing I want to say, the amount of people that have reached out is just unprecedented. I mean, the people that have just shown so much love, and I mean, I think I like 99% of the comments over the past couple of days from Twitter and YouTube were just like pure joy. And I don't want to get emotional on stream right now. It's 8:49 in the morning, but like at some level, you really start to just realize there are people in the world that are happy for your success. It's very difficult to be successful in anything in life, especially, when you go years and years and years without really a lot of the recognition people want you to get in life. And it's kind of like your favorite music artist, right? They keep putting out albums, but they just don't get that hit single that goes mainstream. And I think with this Palantir journey, it's been a lot of hopefully quality content over the past couple of years that has come from myself. And a lot of people have noticed it. But most of the people that were following this channel were waiting for that day where someone from senior management really, really recognizes it and just appreciates it. And that's what happened yesterday. So I just really, really, really want to thank everybody for reaching out. I don't have the words to express the gratitude. And I recognize I'm in a very privileged position in life where people at this stage, and maybe this changes one day, but at least at this stage, at this size of who I am and what the brand is, they're actually genuinely happy for you versus jealousy or envy or this kind of like, I hate this guy, he doesn't deserve it. Like I just didn't feel that yesterday. I just felt the love of the world for having what happened yesterday happen. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I mean, these comments right here, David, you deserved it. This was basically the comment I got for the past 24 hours is you deserved it. And hopefully that speaks, because at the end of the day, I'm a capitalist and I believe in meritocracy. Hopefully, and this is also what someone that got the job done for me yesterday, who connected me with all these people. This is basically what he told me last night at dinner, which is that, if you work hard enough for something and you're a good person and you don't take advantage of people, you're not narcissistic, you're not trying to get a quick buck and monetize, people just to get short-term gains, usually things work out, which is kind of the Palantir philosophy, right? Let the customer use the product and then we will figure out how to make money. But the value is what matters. And then you deserve the value if you actually live up to it. And hopefully over the past couple of years, the work was enough to, get the value from it now. Okay, so how did this thing go down? So this shit was, look at this, the mic's already falling. This shit was crazy, bro. So basically, why was I at this event? I was at the SCSP Expo. This is this expo in DC where all these defense tech companies come and they present different new products they're working on. Palantir, obviously big in defense tech. They bought the biggest sponsorship. They were the biggest sponsor. So they had the biggest booth. And so very, very exciting stuff. I mean, we'll talk about the demos later because I'll get into all of that maybe even tomorrow. I'm going to do a video today talking about some of the stuff as well. But the point is we got to go there. Iliano, and this is the guy who actually invited us here. I posted this picture yesterday on Twitter. Iliano is one of the main people at Palantir who does strategic engagement and partnerships. So this guy right here, as you can see this picture, I'm with Arnie, Ether, and Iliano. This dude right here, he looks like a French model. This dude is the reason why we even met Karp yesterday, or Sean. We got to meet both of them yesterday. So he is the single biggest reason for this. His Twitter is right here. I'll put it in the chat if anyone wants to follow. But he invited us to this event. Like a couple weeks ago, basically at the beginning of May. And or not beginning of May, beginning of April. And his vision was like, hey, we want you to come down and just kind of tweet some pictures, make a vlog, kind of get the experience of it. We can't really promise you're going to meet any of the senior officials or anything, but like, just come through and kind of enjoy the event. Almost that was the idea. And the reason he invited us was because basically he's been looking at the Palantir content creator landscape, and he was like, who are some people that he thinks he can trust, that are going to be, safe, respectable, that actually deserve to kind of get this opportunity to be in this environment. And that would be a good, representation of our values. And so he reached out to us a month ago. Arnie and I decided to say yes. We're like, all right, this will be a super cool event. And then we came through. So we get to the event. As you can say, Rodney right here, Iliano is the best. This guy is absolutely insane, dude. He is the hardest working dude that I've seen in a very long time, and just in terms of like how I network and meet with people. This guy eats, sleeps, and breathes Palantir. The way he got his Palantir job also is a story for another day, but he got the opportunity, he took advantage of it, and now he's like one of the leading guys at the company and really making some noise. So he got us into the event, right? And so we get to the event, and what he told us before going into the event was like, hey, Karp's going to be there, he's giving a talk. Sham's going to be there, he's giving a talk. But these guys are so busy, right? This is a $50 billion company. These are very important C-suite executives. I cannot promise you're going to have a chance to meet them. More likely than not, you're not going to meet these guys. And, I was like, all right, it is what it is, right? I'm just happy to be there and enjoy the event. So we get to the event, right? We're there, and Karp is doing a talk. Now, Iliano says, well, look, I don't know if you guys are going to even be able to get into the talk because it's very crowded. So maybe if you get some room in the back, you can at least get into the room while he's talking. It's like this big hall that he's talking at. And it's like, okay, cool. So we walk up to the event, we walk inside, and I notice there's some seats at the front that are empty. They're dead empty. I also notice security is not really looking right there. So, in my perspective, I'm like, okay, wait a second, hold on. Alex Karp says to attack. We're going to go fucking attack. And so we just attacked. We walked through and we got right to the front of the stage. Now, granted, there were a lot of seats open. So I think it wasn't reserved seating, right? So like pretty much anyone could have gone, but like the entire mentality was, okay, if the seats are open right here, then we're going to go and the seats are in. Time to slide, as I'm Beneficial says, that's correct. And so we get to the front and then we sit there. We get there an hour early. It's freezing cold in this place. I don't know why they have the AC blasting, but we're just sitting there like shivering, waiting for Karp to get there from like 10 to 11. And then finally at 11, it's time for Karp's panel. Karp was on a panel with Eric Schmidt, who is the former CEO of Google. Andrew Ross Sorkin, I got to see him, dude, on CNBC. I watch him every morning do his version of the market open, which is like the whole professional shit. So it was really cool to see him in person. And then General Milley and a couple other people. And so it was a really star-studded panel. And so he's there. And we're sitting at the very front. And then it's 10:59, and the speakers are like, all right, everyone, please take a seat because we have the panel starting. And then they introduce everybody. Last person to walk out, Dr. Alex Karp. And so Karp's walking on stage. When I mean I'm in the front row, I mean, like, imagine like you're at a concert. If anyone's been to a concert and you ever got front row tickets, I've never been to a concert, never got front row tickets at anything. So I'm literally like right here. I guess there's maybe a couple feet of distance between us. And that's why the pictures I got were pretty good on Twitter when I was able to post them. I'll just share one of those pictures right now so you guys can see how close I was. This was one of the pictures. I zoomed in a little bit here, but as you can see, is pretty close, right? You just can't get a picture like this all the way from the back. And so we're there, and so this series of events happens, right? Karp gets on stage, and he's like fiddling the whole Karp 9 yards. He's like trying to like, I don't know, he's breakout dancing or something. He's just like, this is what Karp does when he sits on stage. He can't stay still because that's who he is. And so Karp's like looking around the room. And I'm just like, I'm just like there. And then he turns his head and he like sees me and I see him. And I'm like, I don't know if he's looking at me. And we like lock eyes, right? And he looks at me and he starts smiling, like a big Karp smile. And then he does this. And I'm like, I'm just like, oh, okay. And Ileano is watching this whole thing. Ileano was sitting with us, and Ileano's like watching him lock eyes with me because Ileano, makes sure to watch Carp. He's like one of his right-hand guys, right? And it's like, and he's just laughing at this whole thing because he did not expect Carp to lock eyes with me, right? He doesn't know how Carp's going to interact with us because at the end of the day, Carp knows us, but Carp's a busy dude. So he really didn't even expect Carp would like interact with us at the end. And you can't blame him for that. And we didn't have that expectation either. So we got the lock in on the hands. And that I think set the precedent for what was going to happen next, because for someone to like wave at you and look at you on a public panel where there's like thousands of people behind them and you're actively like waving to someone, it let me know, oh, like he acknowledges that I'm here. It's not just like, oh, there's a mitt. It's like, oh, there's a mitt, right? And that was the acknowledgement of the waving of the hand. After that, he goes to the panel. Carp crushes it, dude. Carp does his monologue. He talks. He's talking about the pagan religion of the woke universities and all this shit. And he's just like crushing. He's talking about if you want to stop people from dying in war, you have to be prepared for war. He's just like absolutely crushing, right? Typical Carp, does what he has to do. I mean, let me show you a couple quotes from what he said. He gave a nice little shout out to Germany. He said, I spent half my life in Germany. Their GDP is going down the drain because the tech companies suck. They don't embrace the future, right? He's like really... He is the star of the show. When he's talking, the energy in the room, like the literal energy, I don't know how to describe it. You can feel that people are listening at a level that they've never listened before for someone like that. And so then the thing ends, right? The conference is, the talk is done. And so the talk ends at like, I don't know, 12:05 or something. By 12:05, 30 seconds later, not even a minute later, dude, 30 seconds later, we lock eyes again, and he jumps off stage and he starts walking towards me. And in these 10 seconds, I'm like, is this fucking happening right now? But in those 10 seconds, I have to process, like, this is fucking happening, right? Like, I was like, is there someone behind me? Is there like does he have to talk to a CEO or something? He's like walking towards, while he's walking towards me, the crowd is beginning to form because, and Ileano told me this, that he's like a celebrity at these conferences. And I know people like him, but I didn't know people like want to get their pictures and his autograph and all this shit. Like legit, when he says AIP is like a rock star concert, he is the rock star. He is the guy that everyone wants their attention. So the crowd starts forming to like, and they're like following Carp, right? If Carp went all the way there, they would all go all the way there to try to get a picture. He ends up coming straight to me. So this whole fucking crowd starts coming to me. And so we're there, and he runs up to me and he puts his hands out and he's like, thank you for being here. I'm so happy that you're here, and I really appreciate you. And in my head at that moment, I just like, I shake his hand, and I'm like, well, thank you for having us. This is like an honor to be here. And we're just smiling, chopping it up a little bit. And I think we get about a minute of just talking with each other while that whole crowd is there. And so during that minute, he's just standing there, and I'll show you the picture in a second. But in that minute, we're just sitting, we're just standing, we're looking at each other. And I was like, I think you have one of the coolest fucking companies on the planet. I did say the word fucking there. And I was like, it has captivated the attention of the retail community at a level that is unprecedented. And it's just an honor to be able to watch you guys privilege and execute. I somehow got all these words out without stumbling. Like I do the mispronunciation of the word of the day, but I explicitly remember I was able to get that out without like stuttering or anything. Like I got that sentence out the way I wanted to get it out. And then he turns and he looks at me and he's like, well, we appreciate you so much. And I'm so happy you're here. And by the way, yesterday we did crush it no matter what anyone says. And you could visibly tell he was a little annoyed that the stock was not reflecting their results. Obviously, he's not obsessed with the stock, but everyone knew like the stock's down 15%. If the stock was up 20% yesterday, there would be even a different vibe, right? Because when the stock's up, the stock's up. When the stock's down, the stock's down. There's certain vibes associated to it. And so you could tell from his perspective, he's like, motherfucker, we crushed it. How the fuck are they selling us off, right? And so the energy I got from him was like, by the way, it's kind of like that read between the lines. We did crush. And I'm like, yes, you guys absolutely did crush, right? And then we just start smiling. And then Ileana's like, all right, let's get a picture of you guys. And Carp's like, all right, let's get a picture. He actively wanted to do the picture. He wasn't forced to do the picture. It wasn't like, oh, can we please get a picture? He was like, yes, let's do the picture, and that was really cool as well. He wanted to capture that moment. And so then we get into the picture. And so this is where, some of the content creation part of me, it's at this point, it's getting embedded into my veins. I had a feeling that once I got to the front row, this would happen. I had a feeling once I got into the front row that that we would have a chance for the picture, right? And so in my head, I'm like, okay, how is this picture going to go down? Because I don't know if I'm going to get this opportunity ever again in my life. This is a pretty big opportunity, and you have to take advantage of this opportunity in a particular way to be able to make this opportunity like mean something, right? This is what you have to do. Like when I got the Vlad interview, I was like, I am going to crush this fucking interview because this interview is going to open up a lot of doors. By the way, that Vlad interview is actually very instrumental to how this all went down, and I'll talk about that later. But it's like some of those moments you just can't fuck up, dude. These are not the moments where you fuck up. You execute, you get the job done. And so we're there, and then in my head, like 10 minutes before I know we're gonna take the photo, I'm like, I'm gonna ask him what he thinks about my hair. I was like, I'm just gonna ask what he thinks about my hair. I did not know this would be the inevitable result of what ends up happening. But I had a feeling, gut instinct, whatever you want to call it, metaphysical, spiritual, content creator, ideas of how this picture would go down. This is probably the best picture I could ever ask for. It's on the thumbnail as well, of CEO of a $55 billion company pulling my crazy hair up. And I'll go through the reasons why I think this is like a really cool photo. But in that moment, I was like, I'm going to ask him what my hair is like. And so we were getting ready to take the picture. Iliano's getting his phone set up. And I have like 2 seconds where I look at him and I'm like, hey, like, what do you think about my hair? And then he starts laughing because he looks at my hair and he's like, well, it's good, but like we need to kind of roughen it up a little bit. And he just grabs my fucking head and he just starts like manhandling my hair. And Iliano's like, oh, this is a perfect picture. And then Karp's like, yes, let's take a picture like this. And then you can see my smile. I mean, there's like a lot of pure joy here. I'm just like, well, yeah, I'm never washing my hair again. So like, this is what we got to do. This is what we got to do, right? And so this is how the picture ends up turning out. And in that moment, it was just really funny. Now, the reason I think this picture is so cool, just like for me in this community, is because A, we finally got to meet Karp. That was a big deal. B, the whole thing about Karp is he has crazy wild hair. Everyone knows he has crazy wild hair, right? That's the whole idea around it. So my hair, the reason I didn't wear a hat, that was also intentional. The reason I wear a hat, guys, so much is because my hair is crazy, right? And it just gets in my eyes. It's annoying. So I just wear the hat. I don't care too much about it. At this event, I kind of was like, let it just flow free. And the reason I wasn't wearing the hat also is because I was like, well, let me ask what he thinks about my hair, because maybe that'll be a fun topic of discussion for a little bit. And because his hair is wild, my hair is wild, immediately he recognized like, oh, this guy has crazy hair. Let me just mess around with it. And it just produced a really fun picture, right? And that was, as you can see right here, yeah, feeling the joy of what you're expressing. That's basically how this thing turned out. He is tall. Either I'm really short, dude, or he's really tall. I think he's like 6'1" or something. He's definitely very tall. I'm 5'7". So, but granted, I was like the shortest guy at this entire conference. It's just like, I have a big personality. I don't have a big height. It is what it is. And so I wasn't born with the height, but hopefully the personality makes up for it. But he's tall and he has a great personality as well. And he's a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. So it was really cool to just meet him and talk to him and see him. But he's a pretty tall guy, and that's how that went down. So we take this picture. He grabs my hair. And then after that, he's still like messing around with my hair. So here's a shout out to Iliano. He got a ton of these, like, he got a ton of these candid moments. This is why I'm so grateful to this guy. He means so much to like actually capture these moments, because again, it just means the world. And then Karp and I took an actual selfie. Karp put up this is basically like a win to him. He's like, let's put up like the win sign. It's like two symbols to like represent a win, kind of like a W to an extent. So that's why he put that up. And we got to spend a little bit of time with him. I think overall we spent like 3 or 4 minutes kind of just like in his vicinity, and like probably a minute or two of him kind of talking and interacting with us. And the biggest thing again from this is like him just saying, you know, thank you. I really appreciate you. Like, you know, for someone who's been building content for 4 years around the company and for Palantir. Oh, it's for victory. Oh, okay. Well, my bad, it's for victory. Yeah, I guess it's for victory. That makes more sense than like winning. But the point is like that time, you know, I spent over the past 4 years building this content and doing it every single day. It's you know, like I think everyone wants to be acknowledged to an extent, and it means a lot. And you know, people from Palantir have reached out to me over the past couple of years, just saying how much they appreciate the content. Because the thing about Palantir is, and this is what Sham was telling me yesterday, we also got to meet Sham Sanker. Got some exciting news about that later this week. But Sham right here, we literally just got to sit down and talk to him, dude. Like we're literally this at their booth. We're like casually sitting down and just talking about AIP and boot camps. You know, it was pretty insane, and it was all because of Iliano. Over the past couple of years, people have been reaching out and they're like, yo, we really appreciate your content. And the reason they appreciate the content is because Palantir had to fight for their existence for the first 10 years, right? The government didn't want them to survive. They had to sue the government. Private, VCs weren't funding them. So the very nature of their existence was predicated on them being able to justify that they belong, their software works, it means something. That's why when I look at the results on earnings and I'm like, Wall Street sees this as blah, 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 blah. I'm like, dude, From Karp's perspective, the reason he's excited is because this company was worth zero. It was worth negative for many, many years. And then they finally turned it around, and now it's compounding at 21% year over year. It's going to do 2.7 billion in revenue. Like, as a founder, you have a certain passion, and he has enough money. As he said on the earnings call, he's made his money. Sham's made his money. It's not about money anymore. It's about, do we actually believe in the mission? And what I got from him is what you see from him in the keynotes. This guy gives a fuck about his mission. He actually cares about what he's doing. And you felt it, dude. Like, you just felt it when you're talking to him, when you're shaking your hand, when he says, I really appreciate you. Getting that type of recognition was valuable to me, because obviously people have said that from Palantir over the past couple of years, but to have the CEO say it, and for him to really mean it as well. It wasn't one of those things where he walked up and he was just like, oh, thanks for being here. Like, he locked eyes. He walked up. He made other people wait in a line to talk to him, right? Because a line started forming of trying to get his attention. And like, he's just like talking to me, Amit, while there's all these fucking people that just want to get a hold of him for a second. And he's taking the time out of his day, very valuable time that he has just to make that statement. So it meant a lot, dude. It really, really, really meant a lot. Big deal for me in my life. It's been pretty surreal over the past 24 hours, but we got the job done. And again, I did not go into this event expecting it. Some people thought like, oh, the whole plan was to like make this happen. I did not know if we would even get to be in the room where Karp was talking. I mean, Ileana was pretty conservative about this because he did not want to get expectations high or anything like that. And I understand, right? It's very difficult to get a guy's attention like this when he's busy trying to save the fucking planet, you know? So it was a hell of an event. It was incredible. And then we got to have dinner last night with Ileana, and he just got to tell us about what's going on with Karp and tell us about his day-to-day life and like how this guy's running around, he's closing deals, and he's like, he is what he looks like on camera. There's not a fake persona. It's him. And I think most of us that follow Karp know that it is him. My investment in Palantir and my investment thesis has been predicated on, I think this is going to be a software company that can scale across the entire world. And give me like one more minute, then we'll discuss the earnings and we'll get into the numbers for today. But also it's been management. And after meeting Karp yesterday, it's one of those things where like, it's an electric energy where I kind of feel a little bit about what CEOs must feel, about what clients must feel, about what government officials must feel. Like, people want to talk to the guy. When he talks, ears spike up. When he gets off stage, no one was going to the other panelists. And some of those panelists were worth many, many billions more than Karp. They went to Karp because what he said, the way he said it, the way he gets people's attention, which is what matters in this day and age. Can you get people to listen to you, give a fuck about you, actually care about you, invest in you? That is a moat, I would argue, that very few companies have from the C-suite perspective. And yes, numbers matter like 70% for the earnings, but that extra 30%, you could argue extra 50%, it's 50-50. It comes down to leadership management and how they ultimately deploy confidence in the investor base. Because he actually has answers, correct. He actually knows how to answer these questions. He's not afraid. I mean, look, dude, we were on the panel. Karp literally said, yeah, when they asked him the first question, he was like, usually I'm on these panels and I really don't like the people that I'm sitting with, and I'm not allowed to say that, but today I at least like some of the people that are on this panel. That's what he said in front of like a couple thousand people. You know, he literally, like, he's one of these no bullshit guys. He's just like, yeah, I don't really like doing these panels because I don't really care about the people on it, but today this is a good panel. And it's like, it gives you a little bit of charisma and like quirkiness. And is it a little arrogant? Yes, but it's not the arrogant that makes him seem like a dick. It's more so the arrogance that's like, no one likes seeing these fancy panels where people are just talking for hours, right? Like, people want the rock star performance, and he's just saying the quiet part out loud that I think a lot of people care about. And so Mike said, Ileana using the under promise, over deliver. Yeah, that's probably how he got his job at Palantir. Under promise and over the F deliver. And that's what he was able to do this weekend for us. Okay, so that was the story. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Again, thank you everybody for the love and the support and people just being genuinely excited for me. It means the world. Unfortunately, someone wasn't excited, and the person that wasn't excited, you know, sometimes it cuts deep when it's your own. And so my sister, I texted this picture to the family group chat, and this was her answer. She said, "Is that someone from Palantir?" And at that moment, I just didn't respond to it. You know, I was just like, you know what? I'm just not responding to this. And then she says, "Don't screenshot and tweet my question." I ended up doing that. She did this with Vlad as well. You know, she did this, met Vlad, and she's like, "Who the hell is that?" So, and also I didn't share this, but my dad, underneath my sister's comment, she was like, "Oh, you definitely need a haircut." So just remember, you could meet a $55 billion public CEO and your Indian father will be like, "Yo, buddy, it's time to get a haircut." Like, it's literally, it's just how this happens. I mean, it keeps you humble. It makes you know that you constantly have to work for their never receiving approval. This is just the way it works out, But yeah, that was the event. and we got the job done. And now we got to keep moving forward. It was a good experience, good event, and now we move forward into the next chapter. All right, so let's talk about the earnings. It's 9:12 right now. We're gonna have about 20 minutes until earnings starts. There's a lot of numbers we got to discuss, a lot of stuff we have to go into. So I'll talk about that. But let's start about numbers. Now, before I get into the numbers, I have another quick little story I want to share for you guys that's going to actually explain, what it means about the numbers. Got to meet someone yesterday. The person I got to meet yesterday and talk to for a little bit, none other than Mariana. Mariana was there as well. She has to travel for these events, right? Like she's covering the company, so she's an analyst. She has to make sure she understands what's going on at these events. And Iliano introduced me to her. He was like, "Hey, do you know who this is?" And I saw her and I was like, I feel like I know who this is, but I couldn't recognize it. I was like, who is this? And then she reaches out her hand to shake my hand. And I'm like, who am I shaking my hand with? And he's like, that's Mariana. And I'm like, holy freaking, like after Sham and Carp, I was starstruck. I was like, Mariana. For those that don't know, she is the analyst that works at Bank of America that covers Palantir. And so it was really cool just to talk to her and get her perspective on everything and just like see how she thinks about analyzing. We didn't really talk about Palantir. We talked more about like what her job consists of and what it means to be an equity analyst and like do research and all this stuff. It's similar role as Dan Ives, but Dan Ives is more building like his own kind of firm with Wedbush. She's like part of the corporate structure of Bank of America. So it was really cool. And she was just explaining like what it means to like write a research note, how much it has to get approved, right? Like I put out a tweet, Palantir earnings, blah, blah, blah. For her to say one word, it has to go through like 17 different regulators that like say, okay, she's like allowed to put this out. So totally different side of the angle, but it was amazing to see her. She's as beautiful as she is on the earnings calls. And she's as cool as she is. I'm pretty sure everyone thinks like, oh, Mariana's just cool. She's fucking cool, dude. She's just cool. She's just like dope. And she's one of those people that's like, it was the most amazing thing to meet her as well. Now, having said that, did you gift her a new mic? Okay, I got to share this. We definitely asked her about why was your mic not working for 3 quarters? And she started dying laughing. And she was like, look, after it didn't work for 3 quarters on the next one where I had to still ask the question, I had like 10 people making sure my mic was good. Like they were going to like live or die by making sure my mic was perfect. So like they made it a really big deal to make that mic perfect for the 4th quarter in a row after it didn't work. Because Carp made a joke out of it. It was a meme to the community. So she was dying laughing about that. But yeah, she knows about that meme as well. So it was super cool. Okay, so that was the extent of the weekend and all the stories. Let's get into the actual numbers. So in terms of the numbers, I think the sell-off is definitely warranted only because the stock ran up a little bit too aggressive on the day of. And Bank of America also, they put out a research note. I'm not going to share everything from the research note right now, but one quote they did say, this is tweet, I'll put it in the chat for those that want to read the entire note. I actually think it's a really good note to read. I did use the Palantir mixed reality. I'll talk about that as well. That shit is fucking crazy, dude. That product, I think, can be a huge product by itself. It was absolutely insane. There's no consumer use case of VR, AR that matters more. Watching the NBA game through your Apple Vision Pro does not matter more than what Palantir is doing with mixed reality. It's night and day. So one of the things they said on Bank of America here on their research note yesterday, we see it as likely management is taking a more cautious approach on outlook given it's only the 1st quarter and still anticipates 25% year-over-year growth. So they commented on why the shares are down. If you read this thing, the reason they think there's a sell-off is because management is sandbagging. I think they're kind of right about this. I do think Palantir will get closer to 25% year-over-year growth. Right now, it's only 21%. And as a result of that, that's why we're seeing a bit of the sell-off right now. Here's Carp. I just want to play 1 minute of him talking in Q1, and then I'm going to give my thoughts on the actual numbers. I want to kind of juxtapose his excitement in the first minute of earnings and the actual numbers, and then talk about if that excitement is warranted for the numbers and why the street might not have been that excited.
Welcome to our Q1 earnings. I think it is fair to say we crushed Q1 in the U.S. We are on fire. You see this in our rule of 7, rule of 40 being 57. You see it in the 68% growth in U.S. commercial. If you do apples to apples, following on 70% growth last quarter, or 71% if you do apples to apples, taking out SPAC revenue. You see it in the deal growth in the U.S. Growing from 70 to 136 in a year. You see it in the general enthusiasm around our products, especially in commercial, but also in government, which has begun to reaccelerate. You see it in general in our customer growth in US Com, which grew 69%. And again, we are growing these numbers while maintaining a rule of 40 score of 57, which basically means we're doing the impossible.
So what did he say right there? And let's juxtapose that to the action of the stock. He said government is reaccelerating. He's correct about that. Government was 11% last quarter. Now it's at 16%. Rivian as well. We got to talk about those guys, dude. Rivian was interesting. Palantir up a little bit right now in the pre-market, up about 0.5%. Government's reaccelerating, okay? Number two, commercial is not only they're not only meeting guidance at 40%. That's what they guided for. We'll listen to our boy Rishi and his comments because Rishi had some interesting things to say. They raised the guidance to 45%. So Carp's like, hold on. Government's reaccelerated from 11 to 16%. US government was 6 to 12%. So most of that was US government. Commercial is continuing to improve, and they're guiding higher on US commercial, which is the main part of the business that's going to take this company, I believe, to the next level. And I think that's what Palantir thinks as well. They're doing it profitably. And they have a 57 score on the rule of 40. And we'll talk about that more in a little bit, which is one of these SaaS metrics that really determines how well you're doing this with your operating margins and your free cash flow as well, and how you're growing. So from that perspective, he's like, I think we crushed it. And I think when we hear that as shareholders, it's like, yeah, that does sound like you crushed it. The problem is the stock was at almost $26 the day you crushed it. If the stock was at $22.50 the day they crushed it, and it probably went up to 24, I don't think anyone would have a problem with the earnings. Unfortunately, the stock being that high just set the expectations to be a little bit too much. I mean, customer count right here, as you can see right here, 69% year over year US commercial customer count, 42% customer count. This was the big number. That accelerated. It went from 10% to 11%, so 554 customers. Commercial customer count, 53% year over year. This is kind of like Robinhood. The only number that matters, we'll do the Robinhood preview in a little bit after the bell, is deposits. If deposits increase for Robinhood, everything else will inevitably be solved. For Palantir, I think it's the same thing. If customer count goes up, most of the other problems are solved. By the way, adjusted operating income margins, I don't know how the hell these guys got that from 34% to 36%. Every incremental percent once you're above 35 is very difficult to do. They were even able to do that. So I'm looking at US commercial customer count went up. Overall customer count went up. Government reaccelerated. They're GAAP profitable for the sixth quarter in the row. They are raising guidance on their US commercial revenue. Adjusted operating margins are going up. They have $3.9 billion in the bank now from $3.7 billion. So they have another $200 million in the bank. What is bad about earnings? And this is what I was reading in the Bank of America report. They were like, yeah, we don't see an issue here. Price target $28, buy. Wedbush, price target $35, buy. Like, they just didn't see the problem. The sell-off is justified to me because the thing ran up too much. And so it's a really weird earnings in regards to the business actually performed, I think, exceptionally well. It's just, if this thing was 20, it would probably gapped up to 22, 23. Everyone would be excited. It was 25, went down to 23. Then it fell yesterday, 21. We also had some bad macro news come out, right? So that didn't help. But everything else that I was looking at were some pretty good numbers. And so curious how other people thinking as well about this, and you can let me know in the chat, but the numbers that I was seeing were pretty damn phenomenal, and it wasn't that bad. Andrew says, I think it dropped after the announcement of a slow growth in take-up after boot camp. So let's talk about this question, because I thought this was important. So Dan Ives asked a very good question. Dan Ives was like, hey, what's the conversion? What's the conversion on the boot camps, right? Because everyone's like, all right, you're doing all these boot camps, but like, how many people are actually getting from these boot camps? Palantir didn't straight up answer that question. They didn't say 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, because then, analysts could do some really quick numbers and come up with valuation models. And the company didn't want to say that. They just said, hey, if you look at our numbers are showing the growth. Now, granted, their numbers are building off of a smaller base. And as the numbers scale, they're not going to be able to keep up those growth percentages because the base is going to get higher. So it's going to be hard to compound unless the actual conversion genuinely does go higher, which means they will be able to compound. But I'm actually okay with that answer. Some people thought that answer was shady. I understand that perspective from like being objective, like just thinking about them as a company. Forget that they're Palantir. If you're any company, why would you give away the conversion ratio on your sales strategy? That's like asking Snowflake, hey, how many calls do you do a day and how many of those calls work? And so if Snowflake's like, oh, we do like 50,000 calls a month and only 3% of them work, an analyst can just take those numbers and start making all these projections. And that number might change. That number might be different. That number has a ton of variables. That number is not static. So for Palantir to say, oh, we have a 5% conversion, 10%, 20%, maybe they say we have a 35% conversion right now, but then that number goes down. And then analysts say, oh, when you should be growing XYZ%, but then that number goes down because the overall comp goes down. And it's like, it's hard to be able to compound from that. It's like, it's a number you don't want to give away. It's one of those numbers that, yes, for transparency would be awesome, but also in the context of them as a business trying to figure out what information do we really tell the public. I don't think that's something you want to tell the analysts because they're going to go crazy with price targets from that perspective. So for me, I do think that it was okay that they didn't give an answer to that question. Now, I also do get that the call was only 20 minutes in terms of the question and answer. They could have given some more questions. They were talking about all this geopolitical stuff where Karp had a really good like monologue about what's going on with the woke universities and stuff, but maybe the earnings call wasn't like the time to really care about that as deeply as they needed to. Granted, I think it was good. New shareholders that were introduced to the company for the first time really got to understand his perspective on this stuff. They got to see how the CEO thinks, but maybe people wanted more about the numbers. I can understand that. My overall takeaway is forget the call. The numbers that I'm looking at when I'm reading this report are exceptional. They're not like phenomenal. They're not NVIDIA numbers, but they're also not bad numbers. They also didn't lower guidance. They raised guidance across the board on top line revenue growth, and they beat by $15 and $19 million for Q1 revenue. So they're growing. No one can say Palantir doesn't grow above 20%. We're growing 21% year over year. I know that's only 1% over 20, but it's baby steps, right? You got to get there. And eventually I think that'll be closer to 25 and 30% if you believe in the long-term value of their mission. So I get that the stock tumbling also made his rants not that exciting. If the stock was up 10%, then everyone would be like, yes, talk about the woke universities. If the stock's down 10%, people are like, dude, we don't give a shit about the woke universities. It is what it is. It's just one of those earnings where, unfortunately, the run we had, which is why on this very market open, on this couch in this Airbnb 2 days ago, someone asked a question at the end of the call. They're like, hey, my call options are up 150%. Should I take profits? And in my head, I was like, if I were you, you won the options trade you were making before earnings. There's nothing. I mean, could you be up 400%? Yes. But at that point, there's just too much greed taking over. You won. Take the damn money. Like if someone's giving you liquidity before the company even returns results, take the money, right? And so for those my boy Andrew, he runs the Daily Palantir account with me. You guys probably know him if you follow him on Twitter. He made 10 grand on earnings just by selling the $25 Palantir car or buying it a month ago and selling it yesterday morning when Palantir was at $25, right? 25.20 or something like that. So I think smart people took some money off the table yesterday in terms of the options market because earnings can be lopsided when something's it's exactly what happened to Coinbase. Coinbase was up 15%. Earnings come out, 1.2 billion in net income off 1.6 billion in revenue. Are you kidding me? Stock's down 10% or like 5% because the market just wasn't really willing to give them the premium. And then Bitcoin was down. Bitcoin down today as well. That's why we see Coinbase at $209. And that's why we saw a little bit of retracement in the stock. So from my perspective, those were my thoughts on Palantir earnings. I'm going to be doing another video later today because I didn't get a video out to do my full recap. I'm literally going to be walking around DC because I don't have like the best setup here. And I'm just going to be making a vlog of me talking about Palantir earnings. So you guys can watch out for that video later today. But in general, my thoughts on the earnings, trying to be as objective as possible. What was bad? What was good? I really don't see what was bad outside of them not growing as much as Wall Street wanted them to grow. And that opinion is shared by Bank of America. When I read the report, Bank of America was like, yeah, they're not growing as much as Wall Street wanted, but it's not like they're not growing. They're probably just under promise, over deliver. Why would you over promise right now and like maybe pump the stock a little bit, but that's not going to really create long-term value that people are looking for. So from that perspective, I think the earnings weren't that bad at all. And that's what we got. Okay, so that is everything on Palantir. We spent a good 40 minutes on it. Thank you everybody for being here. If someone else joins, you can go and rewind for the first 40 minutes. We talked a lot about Palantir, the event recap and earnings. Got a lot of other stuff to talk about. So let's get into that. Final thing I'll say on this is from the bottom of my heart. Thank you everybody for being here. This is one of the best communities on the planet. I cannot express enough of my gratitude of you guys being here and being genuinely happy. That's it. I mean, the amount of happiness that people had yesterday, it's just like, it's people wanted this to happen. And I think Karp knew people wanted this to happen. And that's why Karp was also excited to take this picture because dude, he knows about me at this point. Like it became evident he knows. I mean, like he knows about the entire community. He's seen the videos. He sees the memes. Like, I mean, he knows what we're doing and why we're doing this is why he says retail is his favorite investor class because he was a retail investor, right? And so he actually appreciates that there is excitement over the company. And now he's just trying to execute to make sure that excitement can continue to be sustained over the next decade. And if he can do that, maybe this is a stock that makes us all a lot of money. And the journey we get from covering it together as a community, because it's a really unique journey. There's not a lot of companies that start at $40, go all the way down to $6. Everyone's down thousands and millions of dollars. And then slowly but surely, everyone who took a bet on these guys actually ended up being right against the people that said that this company is going to go bankrupt. It's never going to work. And it turns out to be one of the most amazing stories in the world. So from that perspective, hopefully it is one of the most exciting journeys of our lifetime. All right. Thank you, everybody. Let's get into some of the other numbers. Let's start with Robinhood. Actually, no, we'll do that after the bell. We'll start with Shopify and Uber. Thiel boosted his ownership. This is correct as well. I'm still investigating this, but it seems like Peter Thiel now owns 10% of Palantir versus 7% of Palantir. Still trying to confirm if that's correct, but from what it looks like, it does seem like Peter Thiel either exercised options and has way more ownership stake in Palantir, which is definitely bullish. But we're going to be talking about that later as well after I get some of those numbers. Okay, Shopify. What the hell is going on with Shopify? I am very confused, even though I think I know the answer. So Shopify right now is down 18%. I looked at the Shopify numbers this morning. I don't think Shopify deserves to be down 18%. Maybe it deserves to be down a little bit, but 18% is ridiculous. Why? They beat on GMV, gross merchandising value, gross merchandising volume. They beat on GPV, the payments volume. They beat on EPS. They beat on revenue. They beat on every metric they needed to beat on. The problem is, and this was a good chart I saw on Twitter, they're trading at 69 times earnings. And when a company is trading at that level compared to its peers, like Etsy, that's trading at 10 times earnings, I guess the multiple becomes too high. But what I'm confused about, so Shopify in the e-commerce space has the highest multiple, right? Outside of like Amazon, but Amazon's not just e-commerce. So I'm thinking, okay, the multiple's high, therefore, yes, the stock can fall. The problem is they beat on every metric. They're growing 23% year over year. These guys are compounding like crazy. Market cap right now, 99 billion. It's going to fall 20% in a couple minutes. So I was confused why the street takes it down 20%. Like, what did they expect? They expected 40% growth or something from a company that's worth almost $100 billion. Like, it doesn't really make sense to me, but this is what we saw, right? And so Shopify here came down as well. All right, so that's Shopify. Then we have Uber. Uber apparently, if I'm not wrong, and I might be wrong because I don't know if I saw the results correctly. I'll actually pull it up just to make sure. I think Uber reported that they're not profitable today after being profitable for a couple quarters. Today's Wednesday. Uber, yeah, they missed on profitability. Yeah, they lost 32 cents a share. The street was expecting 23 cents. That's why Uber is down right now. They lost. So the Tesla FSD narrative is not helping Uber. And then Uber not being profitable. I don't know why they're not profitable. Maybe it's like a one-time charge of some like regulatory thing and it's not that big of a deal. So maybe that's a huge buy the dip opportunity, right? We'll find out about that in a bit. But maybe that's kind of the issue going on. But that is why the stock's down 8% right now for Uber. And then Celsius yesterday went through a whirlwind. Celsius fell like 20%. And then the street like realized they were overreacting. So the thing gapped back up. Right now it's down 2% in the pre-markets. But Celsius missed on revenue by like 30 million, but their operating margins increased. So that was really exciting. So Celsius went through a crazy amount of turmoil yesterday. And then Rivian's down 7%. They're still losing money per vehicle, but it's a lot less money than they were losing before. They had a one-time write-off. Okay, that's what I thought. It was probably a one-time write-off. So that makes sense. So maybe that is a good buy the dip on Uber. We have to go deeper into the rest of the numbers, but that's probably an algorithmically driven sell-off. So a lot of companies this week have just like not messed up on earnings, but the stock market hasn't reflected their earnings growth, all while the S&P is at 515. I am actually like surprised the S&P somehow is at 515 while these companies are tanking this much as they are. I guess big tech is holding it up. So I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how it happens. I have a bunch of macro thoughts I want to share. Market trades came down for the first time in a month. So we'll talk all about that. 9:30 a.m. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We got the cowbell. The stock market is now open. Wake your ass up. Let's get into this. All right. So Uber goes down 8% on the day. Shopify, disgusting 17%. Really, really tough day for Shopify. I don't think they deserve to be down this much, but they're down. Coinbase down 2%. Palantir up about 1%. Palantir got its ass handed to it yesterday. I did buy 25 shares of Palantir, posted that on Twitter. So Palantir, I guess it deserves to get a little bit of a rebound today, given most of the selling I think happened yesterday. And most of the selling I also think was algorithmic and retail driven. I don't think any institution looked at those results and they were like, dump it. I really doubt. And if they did, it must be a short-term minded institution that didn't really see what was going on, because what I saw was growth across the board. So likely more algorithmic and retail. But that one's up a little bit right now. Celsius down 1%. Rocket Labs, I think they had a good earnings. I don't know. I didn't get to check their numbers. They're down 3.2%. Again, space, very hard industry. It's going to take time for this thing to play out. Kathy Wood did buy, by the way, 1.36 million shares of Palantir yesterday. And she bought, I think, a couple 100,000 shares of Rocket Lab. So she definitely bought the dip on both of those companies as well yesterday. Salesforce up a little bit. ServiceNow up 1%. Snowflake down 0.6%. Tesla down 4%. We'll talk about Tesla in a second. Robinhood down 2%. We'll talk about Robinhood in a second as well. I actually really like that Robinhood's down going to earnings. It's lowering the expectations at least a little bit because the expectations are pretty sky high for Robinhood. Apple 182, Carvana 115. Wow, Carvana fell a little bit. Carvana was a bit higher. Not crazy, but it's still a nice gap up from earnings. GameStop down 2.4%. MicroStrategy, I thought MicroStrategy would be down more today, given Bitcoin fell down. MicroStrategy only down 4%. HIMS is down 5%. So HIMS I did see because everyone was tweeting about this thing. Like it was the next, like, you know, I don't know, like multi-trillion-dollar company yesterday. HIMS had a great earnings, apparently. They raised their guidance, growing even faster. Profitability went up, all this stuff. So I think they went up like, what, 15% yesterday, something like that. If the CEO of HIMS just didn't speak his thoughts and opinions on the Palestine-Israel conflict, I don't think HIMS would be in this situation, because HIMS was already at like 14 before he spoke about that. If he didn't speak about that, probably would have gapped up to 16. And then if it fell down, maybe would have fallen back to 14 versus at 11.89 right now. Granted, that is a decision you make. And I think the reason I think he had some regrets is because he put out an explanatory post on Twitter the 2 days after, because he saw the stock lose a shit ton of money. And investors were probably like, dude, what the hell is going on? Like, really, like, why did you have to say all this shit? And then the explanatory post was like, I didn't really mean exactly what I was saying. And in my opinion, it's like, dude, if you have to explain yourself because you see your company lose hundreds of millions of dollars in market cap, you actually don't give a fuck about politics and voicing your political opinion. You're just erratic. If you have to go capitulate to shareholders and you're not Elon Musk that's going to say, you know, suck Elon's cock to the SEC, right, when he gets fined. Like, if you're not going to be that on edge, don't say any shit, because you're just ruining shareholder capital. And then you have to give some bullshit explanatory post of, guys, this is not, I wasn't pro Hamas, I was pro college protests. It's like, dude, perception is reality. No one cares about the nuances of perception. People are very short-term minded. They see a tweet, they'll move on really quickly, and then they'll form their opinion of you, and they'll sell your stock if they disagree with you, if it's something that's that politically targeted. So to me, the HIMS thing was an absolute mess up. Why is Karp political? The reason Karp's political is because he actually makes money from being polarizing, because his clients agree with his worldviews, right? So like, he needs to sell to Europe. He needs to talk about Western values and democracy. HIMS is selling a dick pill. You don't need to say that shit. You're selling dick pills, dude. You don't need to say that shit. So I thought that was an absolute mess up. HIMS right now down 4%. Shopify down 20% of the day. Market just absolutely crushing them. SoFi, again, under $7. Of course, SoFi is under $7. Why wouldn't SoFi be under $7? So we got SoFi under $7 right now, $6.98. We got Tom in the chat. Tom Nash, he says, thank you. He says, good job on being the Palantir minute. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate you being in the chat, man. It means the absolute world that you are here. Tom, actually, you know, one of the OGs of the Palantir community. So really, really appreciate you, Tom, being here in the chat. Apple right here, 182, up 0.08% right now. MicroStrategy down about 4%. DraftKings down 1.65%. PayPal again, just can't find any momentum in that $70 range, still below 65. This is a stock that should be 75 based on their earnings. I thought that was ridiculous. Enovix had a great, they were up 50%. They're down 3% on the day. It makes sense. They were up 50% over the past couple of weeks. So makes sense that they're taking a little bit of a breather. Enphase 112 down 2.3%. Hershey's up a little bit right now. Palantir, one of the only stocks that's green, along with ServiceNow and CRM. So we got some of the SaaS stocks that are green. Palantir probably going to go red in a second. It's like fighting for its life at the green 2142 right now. So we'll see what happens there. Meta's down a little bit. SQQ is up. DPZ, Domino's flat on the day. Reddit had a good earnings. They beat revenue by 30 million bucks. So revenue had a phenomenal earnings as well. We'll talk about Reddit in a little bit, but they had a good earnings. They're up 6% on the day, $52. Intel, wow, Intel's below 30. Intel, man, Intel. Every time I think about getting into Intel, I'm just like, dude, is it a value trap? I don't know. So we got Intel right here at $29.97 right now, down 2.3%. Kava's down 1.25%. Snapchat, interestingly enough, getting back to the $17 range. They're down 2% on the day, but I think the street's excited that their revenue growth is going to accelerate off their AI subscriptions, and their advertising is getting better because some of the DAUs are also starting to accelerate. So maybe that's why the street is excited about them as well. Let's go to the Max 7. What do we have going on there? NVIDIA was at $940 or $920 yesterday. Right now, NVIDIA at $899. So NVIDIA down below that $900 range. Tesla, $171. We'll talk about them in a second. Google, $171. Google quietly got back to $171. It was at like $163 at one point and got back to this $170 range. So now it's up a good 20% in the year, which is incredible. Apple, oh, by the way, Apple introduced these iPads that are like super thin, and I don't think the street cares about them. The interesting news this week was that Apple is planning to create AI or chips for AI data centers, or AI chips for data centers. That's exciting. That's going into kind of the NVIDIA market, becoming a little bit of a hyperscaler, becoming like really just like an interesting AI play outside of their hardware business. And I think that's why the street like is giving them the continued pump after earnings. They added about $200 billion in market cap. But the iPads they introduced yesterday, no one cares, dude. Unfortunately, no one cares. Like the reception I saw on social media was like literally no one cares. And so again, it's like Vision Pro, no one cares. iPad, no one cares. The M4 chips on the Mac, maybe people will care, but they have to then prove that there's an upgrade cycle coming for the Macs for people. And I don't really know how good is the M4 versus the M3 because my M3 chip is not horrible, right? NVIDIA pumping right now a little bit, 903, got a nice big green candle right there. So I really do think Apple's in a precarious situation. And if the WWDC event that doesn't, that has to announce some AI vision for their phone, if that doesn't go as well as people think it can go, maybe the multiple is a little too high. Obviously, Warren Buffett last week sold about 100 million shares of Apple. So that also doesn't help in terms of Apple's narrative. Bitcoin right here, just below 62,000. We've got Robinhood down 3%. I'll do the Robinhood preview in a little bit. MicroStrategy down 5%. Bitfarms down 3.5%. CleanSpark down 5.7%. Coinbase down 2.6%. Why is Bitcoin down? The ETF inflows were not that good yesterday. That's the argument I have for it. I also think the halving event, again, it just hasn't had its full effect. We have to wait a couple months until the supply shock starts to really take into account. But right now, that's what we got going on for Bitcoin, and that's why it's down a little bit. Oh, Alex, we'll talk about this as well. I'll talk about that in a second. Palantir rolling out Foundry for consumers. That's also a really, really, really big deal. So we'll talk about that in a second. That was another huge announcement they had yesterday as well. So we'll be able to talk about that tomorrow as well. Jason says, bro, I love you for taking that picture with Carp. I appreciate you, Jason. Thank you for doing that. Okay, cool. So that's what we've got going on there. Thomas says, IDK, why one of these cash-heavy giants didn't enter the Foundry business last year. Yeah, that's a big point, and now Intel's trying to do it in the context of TSMC, and so we'll see how that turns out. Okay, so I think we'll do let me look at a couple other stocks, then we'll do the Robinhood preview, and then we'll talk about the Palantir announcement from yesterday as well. They are loading out AIP now to Foundry developers, and they allowed 400 people to sign up yesterday via their QR code with Sham's keynote. That is a game changer. I don't know if you guys have seen CodeStrap's video, but you can, how we were talking about, can you like sign up with your credit card and start using Palantir Foundry and AIP and pay for it? They announced that yesterday. That's what they announced. Now, they announced it at a limited scale. It's not open to literally the entire world yet. I think they're going to do this in cohorts. But the fact that they're starting that, I signed up with my credit card yesterday. I now have a developer account, and I got $500 of free storage that I can use. It's pretty incredible. It's absolutely incredible. So super exciting. Adam says, did the event make you more bullish on Palantir? Yeah, it made me very bullish on Palantir just by understanding their culture. One of the things I will say is that the people I met a lot of employees at the company. I asked all of them, like, why do you work here? Every single one, dude, like 100% of the people I talked to were like, this is the most exciting company on the planet. The culture is a winning culture. I need to be challenged. These are smart people that need a challenge to like wake up in the morning. And I couldn't imagine myself working for anyone other than Dr. Karp. And they all called him Dr. Karp. I mean, the level of respect they should. It's like when you talk about top down in terms of the culture going back down to the company, you're talking to these really high level engineers, and they're like, yeah, Dr. Karp is the reason that we cared so deeply about this company. So it's one of those things where you're like, dude, this is a real culture. And how can you not feel more bullish when the employees themselves are so motivated? And by the way, the stock can't stay down forever because those employees are going to leave. As motivated as they are, if the stock's flat for the next 3 years, they're out. Because at the end of the day, people are money motivated, right? So they care about the mission, but they still have to make their money because they're high-level engineers that can make a lot of money in other places. So Karp has an incentive to make sure these employees get paid. The employees get paid when investors get paid because the employees are paid in stock-based comp. So the stock has to go up. And so I think there is a mutual sort of symbiotic relationship between shareholders, investors, and management and employees to be able to get this company to continue to keep going. I believe 400 people got to sign up. Yeah, 400 people signed up quick. It was a very quick. It went viral on Twitter basically yesterday. So a lot of people got to sign up. Okay, a couple other stocks I want to talk about. Then we'll go to Robinhood. SoFi, Anthony Noto did buy 30,000 shares yesterday. He bought at $6.99 or $6.98. So that was fine. 29,000 shares. That was cool. Netflix at 608. That one recovered a little bit. Wow, when did Netflix was at 550. That silently went back up to 600. We didn't see that for a while. Square 71, Roku 59.19, Roblox 40, NASDAQ 16,250, Google again at 171, Apple 182. Lucid at earnings, they're up because I think there's nowhere else they can go. I mean, if Lucid goes down, I think they literally go to hell at this point. Like, I don't know how much more further you can go down. Like, the only way you can go down is literally go to the underworld and be in hell. So at this point, I think they can only go up, even though they didn't have the best earnings as well. But that's what we had for Lucid. Now, in terms of earnings this morning, we had Shopify, we had Uber. Those were the big ones. After hours today, we have Airbnb, Trade Desk, HubSpot, Instacart, Duolingo. There's going to be Instacart's, I think, second quarter of being a public company or third quarter. SolarEdge, that's going to be assigned with Enphase. ARM Holdings, that's a big one. And then obviously Robinhood, I'll be covering that one live as well. And we'll be discussing that. And we'll keep seeing, and we'll keep going from there. Peter Girardi, thank you for the $5 super chat. So proud of you. I felt like you met someone who I would want to meet more than any super celebrity. So awesome. So awesome. Yeah, it really was like a celebrity, dude. I like, there's no rap, rock star, hip hop artist that I would want to meet more. Like, there's no one in the world I would want to meet more than Dr. Karp. You know, like Alex Karp is the guy. And like, that happened yesterday. So that was really cool. I can't think on the top of my head, who would I really want to meet in the world besides him? I'm not that big into sports. Like LeBron would be cool, but like, dude, it's LeBron. It's like, whatever. You know, it's like Alex Karp is different. So that's why it was super dope. Ian, thank you for the $5 super chat. Amit, on behalf of the brilliant, smart, talented, and very funny global community you have built, well done. We are cheering for you every minute. Ian, thank you so much. It means the absolute world to me. And Emer says, keep up the amazing work, Amit. Happy to see that Karp and you met. Glad to see he knows of us and our support of Palantir. Yeah, he does. He really knows about retail. He cares about retail deeply. And that's what it seemed like. That's basically what he told me yesterday when we met. All right, let's do the Robinhood preview. So let's discuss Robinhood. So first of all, I'm going to be live today discussing Robinhood, and I'm going to be live today with Robinhood with a dude that covers Robinhood as well. I mean, he doesn't really cover them, but he talks about them. What's the guy's name? Dave Hansen. So at 3:30, I'll be live with Dave Hansen. You guys might know him. He has a YouTube channel called Dumb Money. I think it has like 100,000 subscribers. He was actually a seed investor in Robinhood like 10 years ago. And so we're going to do the earnings special together. He was one of the first people to get the gold credit card, and he is a shareholder of Robinhood right now. So he has a lot of thoughts about the company, and I think that'll be a fun earnings presentation. That'll be at 3:30. We'll talk about the Tesla fraud claims in a bit. Give me like 5-10 minutes to do the Robinhood preview, then we'll do Tesla frauds. Okay, what am I expecting for Robinhood? You know, I've been thinking a lot about this SEC Wells notice that we got, okay? And it's really annoying that we got this SEC Wells notice. Like it's dare I say manipulation by the SEC in terms of how they deployed it against us. I mean, it's 2 days before earnings for them to do that is like, you really start to question the validity and the legitimacy of the institution because you couldn't wait till after earnings. The timing of it was oddly peculiar. What is a Wells notice? A Wells notice is a formal invitation by the SEC to get your ass sued. And they are alleging that Robinhood is selling unregistered securities, which are certain crypto products, likely they're referring to Ethereum. And they're going to sue Robinhood and force them to take that off their platform. That's kind of the inevitable result if they were to win this lawsuit. The more I think about it, the more I think this is bullshit. So KWB or KBW, they have a price target of $20 in Robinhood. They put out this note yesterday. So here's what they said. Robinhood being issued a Wells notice by the SEC is surprising given the company's very conservative approach to digital asset listings. Robinhood doesn't even have Solana, which is one of the juiciest cryptos on the planet. It's one of the top 3 coins by market cap. Robinhood doesn't have it because of how scared they are that the SEC gets upset. So when he says they're conservative, they are very conservative. KBW notes that Robinhood only offers 15 cryptos on the platform, while some of its peers offer more than 200 digital assets. We expect no change to Hood's current U.S. crypto operations or asset listings and expect the SEC to bring forward a suit within the coming months. He goes on to say, our preliminary view is that Robinhood would most likely fight the SEC in court and has a higher likelihood to prevail than most U.S. competitors if put in similar situations, given Hood's stricter listing standards. On top of that, Vlad responded, and I think the street liked that Vlad said this. He says, over the last 3 years, we've reached a state of regulatory onslaught that is harmful to the American company and consumer. The SEC continued to tackle on crypto coupled with the recent rules proposals like the one related to the predictive data analytics marks yet another improper attempt by the administrative state to stifle innovation. He then says, while we strive to maintain our positive and productive relationships with our regulators, if necessary, we will use our resources to contest this matter in the courts with the intent of both defending our crypto business and establishing regulatory clarity in the United States for the benefit of customers. Basically saying, we're going to sue your ass back if you sue us, and we're not going to go down without a fight. I think this is the right approach because if you try to just like take it easy on the SEC, they're going to be aggressive. They're going to suck a ton of money out of you. To me, this seems like the SEC just wants to get a ton of fines and get their lawyers to get paid. And as a result of that, they're bringing the suit against Robinhood. It makes no sense for them to do this right now at this state, given this debate has been going on around Robinhood for years, or not just Robinhood, but crypto brokerages in general. Coinbase, by the way, got sued at $30 in February. The stock's now 200. So they've done a nice 7x since they've gotten sued. I don't know if that's going to happen to Robinhood as well. But the point is, I don't think the stock necessarily has to go down or like have this huge regulatory risk just because they're getting sued, because we saw what happened with Coinbase. Now, Coinbase is not an official brokerage, like Robinhood, so it's a bit different. There's different regulations, but that's kind of the proxy I'm looking at. Dan Gallagher, the chief legal officer at Robinhood, this guy was a former commissioner of the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, from 2011 to 2015. So this is the time for this dude to stand up. Whatever this guy is getting paid, he's got to get his money's worth over the next couple of months now, because this dude who worked in the SEC, understands the SEC very well, needs to be able to convince the SEC that they're being stupid for suing Robinhood right now. And I don't know how it's going to end up turning out. One thing I will say from the KBW note, again, they have a $20 price target on Robinhood. Their argument was that if this becomes a big deal, like this becomes kind of annoying, the effects of this are not going to happen until late 2025. Like, no one cares about this. So their argument was like, dude, like if this actually does happen, it's going to take years of legal back and forth for this to ever become something. Maybe Robinhood has to pay some fines. They lose some money here and there. Maybe they're not profitable one quarter because of regulatory fees. That's definitely a concern that could happen, and that could be bad for the stock. But they don't think Bitcoin and Ethereum are going to be delisted off of Robinhood. That's just a dramatic thing that could happen. And the SEC, Gary Gensler's been trying to get Ethereum off of Coinbase for years now. And Brian Armstrong is just like, no, we're not fucking doing this. This is not going to happen. So from my perspective, I think Robinhood actually doesn't have to worry a lot about the SEC Wells notice. It is super annoying. We got it. Trust me. I have a lot of money in Robinhood. It was very annoying to see the stock go down 10% just because of the stupid notice, and justifiably so. I mean, it is a risk. People are kind of rethinking the thesis. If crypto revenues were to go away, I don't think that's going to happen, but that would be 10% of the revenues gone overnight. Again, not happening, but that's how the market kind of thinks of this stuff. So I understand why it fell 10%. Now it rebounded 8% off the 10% low. So if you got in at 16.20, you got a nice dip right before earnings. Having said that, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Overall, I think they're going to crush earnings because there's too many catalysts. Me and Arnie were at Starbucks this morning and we were talking about it, and we were just like, they're going to put up a $10 billion deposit quarter. They're going to put up $10 freaking billion in deposits. And when they put up $10 billion in deposits, the street's going to have to look at themselves and be like, what are we doing not taking this more seriously? And I think so far, my price target is 25 by the end of the year. I'm not that far off by the rest of the street. Bernstein is the only one that has a higher target than me at $30. Everyone else has 21, 22, 23. So most of the street, along with Amit Capital and Bernstein, pretty much agree this thing should be in the mid-20s. Like, it's not insane. Right now it's at 17. Why should it be in the mid-20s? 10 billion in deposits going to crush. This is going to be the first quarter they had 10 billion deposits probably in the past 3 years. Then you've got the gold credit card. I mean, they're going to have 1 million signups. That the revenue from that's going to be incredible in terms of how at least the deposits. That's going to be a catalyst for Q2. That hasn't even happened in Q1. Then you have the Roth IRA, went from 1.5 billion to 6 billion in assets. 2 billion of that was in April. So we already know they had at least 2 billion of deposits in April, which is going to be another potential setup for a $10 billion quarter in Q2, which means it's going to sustain these results. It's not just going to be a one-time thing. Then you've got the gold numbers that are obviously going up in terms of subscribers. You've got crypto revenue that I estimate is going to be probably around $75 million or at least 70 million bucks this quarter, which is going to be a nice big beat. Net interest income, they're still getting 5% on all this money that they're bringing in. All the deposits leads to more net interest income. Customer growth, they added 225,000 accounts in January and February. Let's say they add another 100,000. That's 300,000 in one quarter. They haven't done that in a lot of quarters. I mean, the growth across the board is going to be insane. And if the growth across the board is going to be insane, my question is, when the street looks at that, how do they not buy the stock? And it's going to be a really exciting earnings because, people have been saying, am I nervous? I'm actually not nervous because I know what the numbers are going to be because I've done the analysis, and they give the first month's, January, February. So you can pretty much figure out what March is going to be just if you look at the trading volumes. And I'm like, okay, so I know what they're going to put out. My consensus, by the way, was 550. I looked at the analyst consensus on Seeking Alpha. They have the exact same, around 550, 546, 552. I'm like, okay, so me and the analysts are thinking the same thing. And I did my numbers without looking at the analyst numbers. So if I know what the numbers are going to be, the only thing I don't know is how the street is going to react. And in my head, I'm like, there's no fucking way the street doesn't explode off of these numbers. Having said that, market's been a bit iffy past couple of weeks. Inflation, which we're getting a lot of data, inflation's coming down, but that's not factored in yet. Market still thinks that's a threat. Potential of interest rates getting cut might not happen for the next few months. So maybe until November, right? So could the market see really good results at $17.72 and say, it's worth 5%? Or, it's okay, but it's not that exciting. We're going to sell it off. I don't think those two reactions could happen in my perspective, given how I think the numbers are going to be. But are they possible? 1,000%. We've seen crazy things this earnings season. I mean, did Disney really deserve to go down 10% yesterday? It's recovering a little bit right now, but did it really deserve to? I don't think so. I know they missed on revenue. They missed on the Disney Plus subscribers, but 10% is a lot for a company like Disney. I don't know if that was the case. Does Shopify deserve to be down 19% right now? Probably not. So here's the thing with earnings. If you don't crush earnings, Palantir is struggling to stay above $21 right now. If you don't crush earnings in this market, given how sticky inflation is, you tank. You absolutely tank. My argument is that Robinhood's going to crush on these earnings. They're going to crush at a big level, which means if they crush at a big level, they're going to do what the street wants them to do, which is put up numbers that are so undeniably strong that they have no choice but to buy. But will that happen? I don't know. And so it's going to be interesting to see. On top of that, Bitcoin is down a little bit, right? And so if Bitcoin's down, Robinhood, that's the other thing about this SEC Wells notice. If Bitcoin goes up, the SEC Wells notice is irrelevant because people still have a shit ton of Bitcoin on Robinhood. They have 100,000 coins in custody. That's going to go higher. Their assets under custody are going to go up. People are going to buy more Bitcoin on Robinhood. Most people don't even care about a Wells notice and know what a Wells notice is. So unless the Wells notice takes people's crypto off of Robinhood, right? People are like, oh my God, I got to get my Bitcoin off of Robinhood, which I don't think is happening because if this were to even go into trial, it would take years to resolve. Then people are still going to trade on Robinhood, which means it's going to be pegged algorithmically to Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin goes up, Robinhood goes up. Bitcoin goes down, Robinhood goes down. So maybe the streets, maybe Bitcoin just doesn't have a good next couple of weeks. So even if Robinhood gets earnings pumps, it then falls after earnings because Bitcoin falls. We'll see. Why is today red? Just selling or some news? I think in terms of the macro, I think people are just taking profits today because we had a nice run last week. Last week was a great week, right? Even yesterday, Nvidia was at 920. Right now, I think Nvidia's at 905. Yeah, 907 right now. Wow, Nvidia's green. People want Nvidia going into earnings. People want Nvidia. So and then Apple, Amazon, everyone had good earnings. So the past couple of weeks have been okay. Again, S&P, dude. I don't know if you guys remember the day Israel-Iran was happening overnight. We were at 493 on the S&P. We're at 516. So we have had a rebound on the overall market. And so the selling that we're seeing right now, even on Palantir, again, Palantir's still up 35% year to date. It's still normal to me. It's not crazy. The question for Robinhood is the stock's already up about 40% year to date. So can they have more momentum built in? And I would argue a stock that's up 40% year to date, it's really hard to compound. But the thing about Robinhood is we know the numbers are worth the compound and enterprise value is still 10 billion. Guys, it's a market cap of 15.5 billion. Take away the cash. Take away the cash. 15.5 minus 5. This is a 10 fucking billion dollar company that's going to be growing at 35% year over year. That's going to have $10 billion in deposits. They are going to do the same amount of deposits as they have in market cap. They're going to bring 10 billion in deposits. I'm guessing. I think March will be 3 billion, which means they already have 7.4 billion for Q1, which means the $10 billion enterprise value they have will be the same in deposits. I think when the street looks at that, they're going to think this is stupid. They're taking, share away from Schwab, Fidelity, all these guys. These guys are going to have a lot of assets over the next few years with this growth strategy, deposit strategy. Oh, by the way, here's the one thing we didn't talk about. I think over the next coming weeks, I already got it on my phone. 1% match is live. If you put in $1 million, you get 10,000, right? Like on every single dollar in perpetuity. I think when that goes into effect, deposits could really, 10 billion might not, it's really going to become incredible. So from that perspective, that's the bull case. I think it can go well. Will the street react to it? I don't know. But this is a company I've studied inside and out. I think I know the company pretty intimately. I think it's going to be good. And we'll see if the street reacts to it. The bear case is that it's already up from $8 in December, and the run from 8 to 17 is too much for the street, and they just don't want it to run anymore, and then it falls. So we will see. Those are my thoughts on Robinhood. I think it'll be fun. And again, as crowd control says, if you don't crush earnings, the frothy value is being removed. And here's the thing with Robinhood, again, I don't think it's frothy by any sense of the imagination. But still, because they're pegged to crypto and they're a brokerage, right? And they're barely gap profitable. Oh, by the way, they're going to do this profitably. I think they're going to be profitable. If their earnings don't crush so hard, they will also the street will also not reward them, even if they're not frothy, right? So even though Robinhood's not frothy, the street still feels a certain perception towards them, which means they absolutely have to crush. And today's going to be the day to see if Vlad can crush. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. And that's my preview on Robinhood. I will be having a special guest join me to break down Robinhood earnings as well. He'll be making an appearance on Thursday, tomorrow at 3:30. So 3:30, I'll be live, and he'll hop on the stream at 3:45, and he'll give us some analysis on the numbers. So make sure you tune in for that Robinhood breakdown, 3:30 p.m. tomorrow. No, sorry, 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. And we'll break down the numbers live and see what we got going on. So that's what we got on Robinhood. And then tonight I'll be live at 3:30. I'll be live at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time as well. Okay, cool. So that's Robinhood. Tesla. Let's talk about Tesla. So Tesla had another Reuters issue today. Tesla had another Reuters issue today. Reuters is accusing Tesla. Of this. So let me pull this up. They're accusing them of securities fraud or something. And I think that's why the stock is down a little bit, down 4% as well. So exclusive in Tesla Autopilot probe, U.S. prosecutors focus on securities wire fraud. U.S. prosecutors are examining whether Tesla committed securities or wire fraud by misleading investors and consumers about its electric vehicle self-driving capabilities. Three people familiar with the matter told Reuters. Tesla's, by the way, does Tesla have like a mole or something? Because Reuters keeps getting these exclusives. Like, who hates Elon so much in the company that keeps telling Reuters all this shit that's going down? Because they seem to be breaking this news every week at this point. Tesla's Autopilot and FSD system assist with steering, braking, and lane changes, but are not fully autonomous. While Tesla has warned drivers to stay ready to take over driving, the Justice Department is examining whether statements by Tesla and Elon are suggesting its cars can drive themselves. U.S. regulators have separately investigated hundreds of crashes. Reuters exclusively reported the U.S. criminal investigation in October 2022. Investigators are exploring whether Tesla committed wire fraud. I kind of think this is a nothing burger, dude. I kind of think no one cares. And I don't know exactly if that's going to be the case. I mean, they are also examining whether Tesla committed securities fraud by deceiving investors and wire fraud, which involves the deception in interstate communications by misleading consumers. All of this hinges on, did Tesla, when you bought a car with FSD, make you think the thing can drive itself? Because if that's the case and you think that's true, it's like if you bought some soda, right? And in the security warnings on the soda, it was like, hey, this thing has way more sugar than it needs to have, and you drink it and then you have like a heart attack or something. Yeah, you can blame the company for not warning you. So the argument here is that, can you blame Tesla for not warning you because you assumed, oh, the thing can drive itself, I'm good? I think that's a hard case to win, dude. Like, Tesla, I'm sure in their terms of service and all that shit, they explicitly say you have to keep your eye on the road. I mean, goodness, if you like look away for 2 seconds, they immediately like send a beep and you get a warning and you have to go back on the wheel. So I don't know how good of a case the SEC has on this. It's a bit weird. Yes, it is called full self-driving, but I do think reasonable consumers understand that it's not autonomous, and they make that very clear when you buy it. So unless there's some people that are just claiming, oh, Tesla lied, I thought it was FSD and I crashed, and it's like, dude, you're just fucking stupid, in my opinion. Like, that, I'm sorry, that has nothing to do with Tesla. You're a fucking idiot. Like, you're dumb. Like, how are you buying a car with FSD and assuming you can just keep your eyes on the road? Like, no, you're dumb. That's it. We have to take some individual accountability here, dude. Are we really going to blame Tesla for this? Like, no. Like, you're stupid. You're dumb. Like, it is what it is. So you have to deal with that violation, unfortunately. But that's not a company that deserves to be sued because of this. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to work. I think the SEC. And here's the thing about the SEC. Let's give a Wells notice to Robinhood. Let's sue Tesla. These guys, it seems like their business is just getting fees from these companies by creating these lawsuits that have to deal with all this legal complexity. That's not a real case, you know? And so I don't know. I think it's sad to see this happening, but that's why the stock's down 2%. It seems like it's going to be a nothing burger, which maybe the stock recovers. Now, in terms of the stock itself, Tesla fell from 198 to 173. It's up from 138 to 173, so a nice pump. Basically, it's down 30% year to date. At one point, it was down almost 50%. But we did see a retracement from that 196 level. So whoever bought at 196, 198, or like 189 or whatever, you are a bit red, and it seems like that was a local top for Tesla. Now, granted, until FSD starts really producing revenue, I am curious how excited the street's going to be about giving them the multiple back to 196. We'll see if that happens. Maybe that robotaxi event is the event that pumps it up. But the fact that it's even at 173 and not at 130, I think is a win, even though it's down year to date because the numbers have been horrible. But the story has kept it alive. And if the story continues to keep it alive, then hopefully Tesla maintains momentum. So that's what we got in the context of Tesla. Now, Shopify, I wrote some cash secured puts. Obviously, I'm doing that challenge with TJ where I'm managing 100,000 of his money. And we wrote 5 puts at 65. TJ texted me last night that I think he closed the position almost. Yeah, he locked in a bit of a position on Shopify. So if he closed the entire thing, I'm not sure if he closed the entire thing. Oh, I know. So there was, yeah, he closed the entire thing. I'm looking at his text right now. So we had 5 cash secured puts at a $65 strike going into earnings. We wrote those a month ago. So they were up 80% yesterday. So he took his profits yesterday because the stock was at his stock was 20% higher than it is right now. Had we held into earnings, we would be down on those puts and we would have to either roll or get assigned. So really interesting to see how that played out. I didn't think Shopify would fall 20%. And I thought even if it did fall, 65 was a safe strike. But I'm just saying this because it goes to show when you're writing cash secured puts, I'm learning as well. You never know going into earnings, dude. You just never know. You literally never know. Like Shopify beat on every metric and the street's like 20%. And it's incredible, dude. So writing options going into earnings is definitely a bit of a game. And as much as you think you know the company, I mean, all of us thought Palantir would not fall 15%. I mean, we thought it would, maybe it falls a little bit, but it's not going down 15%. And then there you go. So many people that bought these short-term calls got crushed. And TJ is the type of guy who sold them those short-term calls. And if TJ was underwater on those calls, let's say Palantir went to 27, he would have just rolled them. And eventually Palantir would probably retrace because 27 is a bit of an excessive valuation for the numbers they put up yesterday. And he would have managed the position. So that's why I'm starting to learn selling options is just so you can manage the risk versus buying, and then you have an expiration, and then if the stock doesn't go to where you want to go, you're screwed. You're done, right? Like it expired, you lose your money. So it's one of those things that I'm learning a lot more in terms of how we understand in regards to selling options. TJ said yesterday he would sell your puts if it hit an 80% gain. It must have hit the 80% mark. Yeah, on his channel, he must have done a live stream. Yeah, he texted me. He locked in $1,000 out of the 1250 we got in premium. So very good that we were able to see that happen as well. Okay, so that's what we had on Palantir, Shopify, Tesla, and Robinhood. We've got Duolingo tonight. We've got Airbnb tonight. We've got a lot of companies tonight, guys. Tonight's going to be a big day. The bulk of earnings have happened outside of NVIDIA. NVIDIA's May 22nd, so that's next week or 2 weeks from now. But everything else kind of played out in terms of the Magnificent Six. And I think we got some good numbers. I mean, outside of Tesla, which the numbers weren't amazing, but the story was good. Even Apple, the numbers weren't great, but I mean, they pumped it with the fucking, what did they do? They pumped it with the buybacks. They did what they had to do, you know? And so I still think earnings went well. And if inflation comes down, then I think 2024 still is not going to be as crazy as we think to the downside. I think there's still room to run. Let's get Liz Young's thoughts. She was on CNBC yesterday. I want to get her perspective on what she felt about all of this. Before we do that, let's listen to 2 minutes of Brad Gerstner talking about Tesla. Let's get his perspectives. He has a big position in Tesla and Uber. So let's see what he has to say, and then we'll go to Liz Young and keep going from there. All right, here we go.
Small position, speaking of driving, autonomous driving and the like in Tesla, which you revealed on our program the last time we spoke. What takes it from a quote-unquote small position to something larger? What do you need to see from Elon and that company from here?
Well, first, let me say, I think Elon's done an extraordinary job, and I think his advantage in AI and full self-driving relative to all the other manufacturers in the world is deeply underappreciated. I described FSD 12 as a chat GPT moment for self-driving. After 10 years of marginal improvements, we had a profound breakthrough around the imitation learning of FSD 12. I think that will be an incredibly valuable asset to the company. I don't think it's an asset that can be replicated by other OEMs in the United States. They simply lack the data. And this is data in, pixels in, and control plane out. So unless you have the data, you're going to have a very hard time catching Tesla in full self-driving. I don't think BYD is going to be able to play in that game either. And I thought it was fascinating. At the moment that the United States is banning TikTok, that the Chinese government is providing permission to Tesla to do full self-driving in partnership with Baidu in China. It shows the resilience and the strength of the relationships that Elon Musk has in China and that Tesla has in China, and their own push toward AI. So I think, you can't think of the company as an auto company. You have to think of it as a technology company. Today, we think that it's, fully valued. It's been a volatile ride. But we think this may be one of the companies that can break through on energy, can break through on AI and FSD. And so we're paying very close attention, because if we start to see the adoption and the conversion on FSD that we think is possible, this will be a story like Apple and services, where services becomes an increasingly important part of their profit makeup.
So having said that, he just said we're going to see Tesla's AI story become more relevant. Before we listen to Liz Young, let's actually listen to Druckenmiller as well. He was on CNBC yesterday, and get his thoughts on where he thinks around what AI is going. Early investor in Microsoft and NVIDIA. I think he sold some NVIDIA as per his latest 13F as well. But let's get his thoughts on where he thinks AI is going right now.
Excitement about AI sort of came into play with that discussion, because you're worried that it's going to take a lot of investment and there's no savings. We got to build up the defense. There's wars everywhere. And you were early with NVIDIA. You were early with AI. You pared back a little bit, but are not less bullish on the prospects for it, are you?
Well, first of all, I wasn't early with NVIDIA. My young partner was early with NVIDIA. He called me in the fall of 22 and said that he thought all this excitement about blockchain was going to be far outweighed by AI. And I asked him how to play it, and he told me I should buy this company, NVIDIA. I didn't even know how to spell it. I bought it. Then a month later, ChatGPT happened. Even an old guy like me could figure out, okay, what that meant. So I increased the position substantially. I said in an interview in June of that year that I expected to own NVIDIA for 2 or 3 years, that this was a mega trend like I'd never seen, potentially bigger than the internet. But when the stock went from 150 to 900, I'm not Warren Buffett. I don't own things for 10 or 20 years. I wish I was Warren Buffett. And 150 to 900, yes, we did cut that position and a lot of other positions in late March. I just need a break. We've had a hell of a run. A lot of what we recognized has become recognized by the marketplace now. We expected Powell to come back and repivot, which he subsequently did. But no, long term, we're as bullish on AI as we've ever been. You just wonder, if we were all sitting here in 1999 talking about the internet, or anybody was talking about it, I don't think anybody would have estimated it would be as big as it got in 20 years. We didn't have the iPhone, we didn't have Uber, we didn't have Facebook, yada, yada. And yet, if you bought the NASDAQ in 99, it went down 80% before that all came to fruition. That's not going to happen with AI, but it could rhyme. AI could rhyme with the internet. As we go through all this capital spending we need to do, the payoff, while it's incrementally coming in by the day, the big payoff might be 4 to 5 years from now. So AI might be a little overhyped now, but underhyped long term.
You said you're not like Warren Buffett, but what you just did with NVIDIA sounds an awful lot like what he did with Apple. He pared his position in Apple by 13% and then went on to say it's a better company than Coca-Cola or American Express or any of the other companies that they have in their portfolio. And he thinks Tim Cook is great.
Yeah, well, I will be very surprised if I don't own NVIDIA on and off the next 10 years.
You're so bullish on AI that, Andrew, you did a great interview with Perplexity, and I think that's where you decided might be a place that you want to be.
I love Perplexity. Again, a funny story. My young partner, the one who has basically been behind all our AI play with his staff, he told me, I don't know, in January, that all the kids on the West Coast weren't using ChatGPT or Google anymore. They were using this thing called Perplexity AI. So I, of course, tried it out, and it was just unbelievable. It's an answer machine, but the speed, but the depth of the answers and the quality, and then the fact that they give you the sources if you want to go deeper, it was nothing like I've ever seen. If you don't believe me, just ask ChatGPT, Gemini, and Perplexity a question and get the answer, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. I fell so in love with it. We tried to get in on a round that we were lucky enough to be accommodated. I love the founder, Aravind Srinivas.
I think what he's speaking about here again is this revolution we're seeing in AI in terms of different LLMs actually creating answers and relationships between answers and how humans actually want to engage and get that information. However, he is still bearish AI right now. And it's really interesting because I'm not bearish as in he doesn't believe it's a thing. He obviously believes it's a thing, but he believes that it's getting a bit priced right now. It's overpriced. And so it makes it think NVIDIA $900, dude, NVIDIA earnings are going to be insane because it's like if the stock's at 900 going into earnings and Druckenmiller just said he's trimming, even though he believes in AI's vision and Perplexity, a company like that, they're going to keep benefiting off of NVIDIA. NVIDIA is going to benefit off of them. So it's like, do they really need to slow down? Probably not, but is the valuation getting ahead of itself? And if NVIDIA doesn't put up the monster numbers to continue to justify the price to earnings, I mean, maybe this thing takes a tumble. And if NVIDIA takes a tumble, the whole market takes a tumble. I think NVIDIA is going to be okay, but Druckenmiller kind of feels $100 to $900 in 18 months. Yeah, October 2022 is $100, 115, now 920. It's just tough to keep justifying that multiple. Let's listen to Liz Young and get a bit of a more macro perspective on what's going on with inflation, and then we'll keep going from there.
Family Office CEO Stan Druckenmiller joined us earlier on the show. We asked him about the Fed's focus early this year on possible rate cuts. Druckenmiller mentioned the Fed's dovish pivot last December, and then he said this.
It seemed to me the Fed was in a perfect position. Inflation was coming down, financial conditions were tightening, and to some extent, I feel like they fumbled on the 5-yard line with the game on the line.
His point was that by saying the Fed cuts could come, that interest rate cuts could come, it really spurred things in the markets and things took off. Joining us right now to talk about this is Liz Young. She's the head of investment strategy at SoFi. Liz, how do you feel about where things could go? Because I think Stan's point was he doesn't know where inflation is going to be a year from now. That Jay Powell doesn't go it, that he doesn't know it. He doesn't think anybody knows the answer to that question. And really, things could go either direction.
Well, I think what happened at the end of last year was we started to feel like we were pretty sure that we knew what was going to happen with inflation. It had come down in a linear fashion. Everybody felt confident that it was going to continue doing so. And then the Fed said what they said in December. I think part of the issue in December was that it was overly interpreted by markets as a dovish pivot. I think they were still trying to leave the door.
That was an over-interpretation. I mean, it felt very much like anybody who was watching that, yeah, rate cuts are coming, and sooner rather than later.
I think they would be appropriate at some point in 2024. And everybody said, okay, well, when's the next meeting in 2024? Maybe we'll get them then. And we got anxious for them. And the market interpreted it as, okay, the Fed put is back on the table. They're there to save us if we need them. Inflation is moving in the right direction. And then what happened was, and to Stanley's point, they had given this forward guidance and the data started to turn. And then we had to backtrack and say, well, now inflation has surprised to the upside 4 months in a row. If that happens again for another quarter, then I think they have to backtrack this cut talk and this no hike talk, which markets are not going to interpret well.
So how are you feeling about overall the economy? How are you feeling about where the markets have interpreted the signs in the economy to this point?
I think right now the market is so short-termy. We are hanging on every single data point, every single Fed statement. And the economy right now is just showing the Fed things that they wanted to see. So we got that first quarter of below trend GDP growth. They've been saying that they needed that in order to fight inflation and get it back to target. And we are expecting that we'll have below trend GDP growth for the remainder of the year, but still positive. I think that's a good thing if that's actually what occurs. The difference will be whether or not the market is okay with that. I think the Fed is going to have a lot higher threshold for pain and a lot higher threshold for softness in the economy, as they should. And we need a consumer who stops overspending and doesn't use too much credit to do so. That will eventually solve the inflation problem, or at least it should put supply and demand back into better balance. But it's a matter of whether or not the market is going to be okay with that on the way. So far, we've been able to digest many fewer rate cuts than we thought. If the narrative shifts back to hikes, I mean, we saw what happened last time. As soon as hikes were taken off the table, everybody was ecstatic, right? So if the narrative shifts back to hikes being possible, we're going to see a lot of bumps in that.
I guess the concerns, if you're looking for something to really worry about in that scenario, not that this is bad news on the face of it, but the jobs market's still very strong. You still do see some wage growth. I guess the concern becomes if rents or rent equivalents start picking back up, that could feed the inflation right back in.
Right. Well, and that, as we know, is a really lagging indicator. It takes a long time for things to show up in rents, and we'll hear the rebuttals of it's not a good measure really of housing anyway. But there was an interesting article in the Journal today about Gen Z and what's happening to that next generation. So incomes on average only up from $59,000 to $60,000 a year since 2020. But credit card balances are at $2,800 on average. And over that period where they've only made $1,000 more a year, rent is up 22%. So taking a bite out of certain consumers, a lot of times we talk about the lower income consumer. I think it's also the younger consumer and who needs to be the next generation of spending. And inflation and rent is definitely taking a bite out of them.
Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
If you're paying rent, perhaps
No,
not.
I'm saying anyone that you're talking about, that's why the numbers are where they are.
Now, some macro pieces of news, guys. I think Liz Young is making some really solid points right here. Mortgage rates have fallen to the lowest level for the first time since March. So 30-year fixed mortgage right now is 7.18% versus 7.25%. So at least that's coming down. That's nice to see. Will help a little bit with inflation. Hopefully we get a further decline as well. And then oil prices, let's check that right now. Actually, I haven't checked that in 2 days. Wow. Oil's actually down. Look at this. WTI, 77. It's down 0.5% on the day. So we got oil coming down. We got mortgages coming down slightly, not a ton, but even Jay Powell says he believes shelter inflation is going to be a thing and that it is going to start to come down over the next coming months. And then you've got Q1 earnings that did very well. Now, is there an argument around what's going on with credit? Is that a strong point that consumers have too much credit? Yes, that's an issue. I do think also consumers have a ton of jobs, and jobs slightly went up a little bit, which is good for inflation coming down, but not to the point where consumers don't have enough money to pay for products and services. So I think that balances it out to an extent, which means the next few months we're going to need to finish a good Q1 earnings season, which I think if Nvidia crushes, we will be done with that. We're going to need inflation and oil to come down. Again, inflation will be 1.67% if energy and shelter wasn't as high as it was. Those two metrics need to substantially start to show at least a decrease, even if it's not huge, but it can't be an increase because then I just think the Fed's going to be like, nothing's working and they're going to potentially get excited to raise rates, especially the hawks that are on the Fed. But they all know disinflation is coming. They all know the data is showing that disinflation is coming. And then we need the AI momentum to continue to maintain itself. So we need earnings to go well. We need inflation to start to come down a little bit more. And then we need AI to still be a thing. I think there's a lot of catalysts still to make AI exciting just by the different products and services that are coming out. GPT-5 is going to be out soon. That's going to be a massive tailwind for just productivity in terms of how effective it is going to be. So I think there's a variety of things that can happen over the next few months that keeps the momentum going. And then I think we heard Tom Lee on Monday basically say, hey, if inflation still has room to fall, then stocks are still cheap. One metric on inflation that I thought was really important, or just stocks in general, historically, in a bull market, stocks trade at 20 times forward earnings of the S&P. Currently, we're at 16 times. So we're still below the average multiple of a bull market for the S&P 500. And we have some room to run there, which gets Tom Lee to his target of maybe 5,400, 5,500. Even said the Super Bowl case, like the 6,000 S&P is not crazy by the end of the year. Now, I think a lot of things have to happen for that, and I'm not betting on 6,000 S&P, but to assume 530, 535 is not possible if we have 2 good quarters of earnings and inflation comes down and rates get cut. Again, rates getting cut is not the best sign for the economy because that means maybe we're headed towards a recession, but there will be a period of probably 5 to 8 months where there is momentum that's building and certain companies will be able to thrive within that. And then if we have this cataclysmic recession in 2025, which I actually don't think that's going to happen just because I think AI is actually going to export a lot of deflation from places across the world, especially from places like China, which maybe we're going to be able to offset that. And productivity is going to go higher. We're going to need more jobs because there's going to be more automation, things of that nature, right? Deflation is going to take into effect. So from that perspective, I actually think we don't have the crazy recession. But if we are going to have it, it's going to happen a year from now. I don't think it's going to happen in the next 10 months, which means there's still money to be made in this market. Amid forward earnings assumes that we aren't in a recession. That's a good point. And technically, the yield curves are still inverted, right? And so that's been the conventional thinking, which is like, hey, maybe, I mean, not maybe. Historically, when the yield curves invert, we have to have a recession. Now, we did have the technical recession in 2022 with the 2 quarters of negative GDP growth, but the yield curve itself has been tested as a thesis. It's this guy who went to Stanford that came up with it in the 80s. People are starting to wonder, is that even a thing? Does it have to result in a recession? One other point that's interesting is Japan, every time they raise their interest rates, in the next 18 months, we have a recession. Happened in 1999, 2007. The last time it happened was 2007, and then it happened in the 80s before that. So in 2007, which is almost 15 years ago, that's when we really felt the effect of Japan raising the interest rates, and we've seen a lot of analysis in terms of what's going on with the Bank of Japan, how they're buying our bonds, the Japanese yen, where's the 10-year trading at right now? All of that could potentially lead to a 2025, 2026 late cycle market, which would tend to be recessionary. But I don't know if that's going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, then, definitely in 2024, there's a lot of room to still gain momentum. Look at the 10-year, dude, 4.479. Are you kidding me? This thing was stuck at 4.7 for like the past 3 weeks. Wow. So I guess the market's interpreting that some of the data that's coming in is not that bad for inflation. And so bonds are being bought up versus sold off. And we're seeing some downside momentum. All right, there we go. I'm going to end it here, guys. Thank you, everybody, for joining. This was super, super fun. I hope you guys enjoyed the interview, or not the interview, is that a Freudian slip? The story about Carp. I will say it right now. I did say there's a special interview coming this week. It's not with Carp. It's not with Carp. I will say that right now. I'm not lying. We don't have the Carp interview. We did get another interview. I won't say who it is yet, but you guys will see that probably on Friday when we'll post that video. We did get an interview, not with Carp, maybe one day, but it was a good interview. So you guys will see that. Hope you guys enjoyed the story. And for those that didn't get the story, if you just joined, you can go back for the first 30 minutes and listen to me talk about the event. King says, I needed to wake your ass up yesterday. Yeah, dude, I hated not doing the market open yesterday. It hurts me when I can't do the market open. It's just part of my life now. But we were up bright and early, and we went to the event and had to get the job done. So it'll be super fun. Thank you, everybody, for joining again. From the bottom of my heart, means the absolute world for me. It's not a Kathy interview yet. We're gonna get Kathy eventually, but it's not Kathy yet. For the bottom, she did buy 1.3 million shares of Palantir yesterday. It means the world to me. Again, the words can't express the gratitude. It's just the most incredible feeling to see that people actually care about you and they want you to be happy and they want you to enjoy the journey and enjoy the process. And I had a lot of people reach out personally that are just genuinely happy, and it fills my heart with joy. And you know what? It makes my mom happy that other people are happy for me. That's the biggest sign of success to her, is that other people want you to win, because she believes in all this stuff around just good energy and stuff. So for her, it was a big deal as well. Even though for my sister, she didn't even know who Carl was. So. Thank you, everybody. Means a lot. I'll be live at 3:30. We're doing Robinhood. Let's see if we can crush this and get to 25. I don't think it's crazy to get there. Could it go back to 14? Yes, I don't think it's going back to 14 after this earnings. We'll see what happens. But I also think it could pump massively, and it'll be a fun earnings. And we'll keep going from there. All right. That's it. I'll see you guys at 3:30. Keep going from there. Thank you, everybody. Love you all. See you in a few hours. Bye, everyone. Have a good day.